This is the part I didn't see where you did disable the chat before, remember?
Well, that's because it takes me to here and we want it to go.
Okay, you. Mary.
No. That's awesome.
I'm assuming, I didn't hear, but I'm assuming Zach is not joining us today.
Oh, yeah, summer.
Okay, I would assume the summer that he, yeah, normally they are not here, but. I heard you're going to the happiest place on earth tomorrow.
Yeah.
You are?
Lucky that.
Land or world?
World, the happiest.
Oh, no.
Is that even
Happiest.
happier than the other one?
It is.
It's definitely the hottest.
It's definitely more city.
Oh,
It's definitely hottest and
Really?
most crowded.
Is it really? Why are you going to that one?
That's a good question.
Seemed like a good idea in like November.
No, my friends from college,
No, that'll be fun.
all bring their kids. They're all there now. And we're bringing them out for a few days. So,
Was it two?
yeah.
area.
Yeah.
I think that's right. I'm not good at that.
That looks like a nice,
I remember with the nicest of years I got and 4 different towns. Aaron says it's from your valley. Really good.
Wow.
It's the golden. No, there's so much.
Sure, go back. We can go back to
Am I ready? We did. That was perfect.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, one more.
Huh? Yeah, yeah.
I see it.
It's really, yeah.
Is the athletic report going to be the monthly report?
Like you got it right there. I was excited. It was all loud. Sorry, call together this regular session meeting of the Park City School Board on June 21st at 4 p.m. Please do pledge of allegiance. Sandy, would you like to lead us?
I would be happy to, thank you. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Move straight to the consent agenda. Can I please get a motion to approve the consent agenda, which includes regular session minutes of May 17th, 2022, accounts payable registers of May 9th, 10th, 13th, 16th, 17th, 20th, 26th, 31st, June 1st, 2nd, 3rd, 4th, and 7th of 2022. The memorandum of understanding agreement with PCEF, the PCEA licensed professional agreement, annual language updates, superintendent contract, for 2022-23 and 23-24. Business administrator contract for 22-23 and 23-24. PCHS land trust amendment, personnel information, May expenses and revenues.
I make a motion to adopt the consent agenda as stated.
Second.
Perfect. Any discussion? All in favor? Aye. All right, so we will move on. We're going to ask Mrs. Morgan to join us.
Good evening, all. Happy summer. PCA has just a few updates we'd like to report. As you noted, the licensed professional agreement negotiations ratification has been completed. All parties involved were very pleased with the updates. In conversations with a few of the board members, PCA recognizes that adding work days to the calendar for only next school year would create a hardship for many families. So in conversations, it was suggested that we all meet in the work session with PCA board members and the district office administrators to discuss alternatives and take a look at what exactly is taking away from teachers' prep time during the school day and make adjustments. In doing so, this could alleviate the need for teacher work days during the school year and would be more beneficial to both teachers and students. Over the summer, PCA will be collaborating with district admin on possible solutions to bring to the table in the September work session. We appreciate the open dialogue and the ability to work on solutions that benefit everyone. One huge benefit has been the ability to schedule no meeting weeks and flex Fridays throughout the school year. No meeting weeks and flex Fridays for the 2022-2023 school year have been tentatively set, and these dates and times do not impact students as they do not interfere with the school day. We appreciate the time and the recognition for this need. The current proposal to triple the RHTA for all certified and classified employees is highly appreciated. PCA welcomes an opportunity to reopen negotiations for the compensation agreement. Our current cost of living within a 30-mile radius of Park City is unsustainable, as we know at the moment. As of April of 2022, the median home price in Park City is $1.7 million, and the average rent for just a studio apartment is $2,500 a month. We realize this is a much bigger issue than just Park City, and we recognize the constraint and restraint we are all under as a school district in regards to budget and money allotted from the state. So we truly value the opportunity to come up with solutions to help alleviate the cost of living increases as much as we can, knowing that the answer is not as simple as it looks from an outside perspective. PCA continues to support our bus drivers and support staff, including all classified employees, and we encourage the DO and board to continue open dialogue to support these essential positions. As teachers, we value our classified staff immensely and thank them for the support they provide to us on a daily basis. Without all of our support staff, even we as teachers cannot run a school district. I hope everyone has a wonderful summer and enjoy some of this beautiful Park City weather. I will be headed to the National Educators Association Annual Convention on July 1st in Chicago, and I'm looking forward to sharing some insight when we return in August. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you for everything this year. All right, Jamie Sheets, would you like to join us?
Good afternoon, everyone. Adjust the screen. Adjust the screen. Airplay it. You're going to test me here with this. Can you increase it more? Just in case this doesn't come up full. Well, there's a copy of the slides right there too. So, I appreciate you allowing me to share some of our successes with you this year and things that are happening outside of the classroom. I know you get an update during normal board meetings of some of the things, but I wanted to hit on a few of the others as well. So I think most of you know we are in class 5, which we'll talk about at the end, region 6, which has been a very productive switch for us to go to region 6 from where we've been regarding travel and regarding competition. Activities participants, we're sitting at right around 1379 when we're talking about the recognized programs that I'll put up on the board. That's it. That's looking at an enrollment of 1649 through 12, at least what I pulled off our school. So that's about 84%. That doesn't include things like student council, National Honor Society, and other clubs. So when you add those in, we're well over 100%. Now, obviously, kids are occupying multiple roster spots, so it's not 100% of the kids that are in our schools that are participating. But when you look at the ones, it does go up over 100%. So that's neat to see our kids involved in extracurricular activities. We do have 22 sports with 52 teams. We'll have a 23rd next year. Cheer will be sanctioned. They will have one team, so that'll drive that up to 53 total teams in those 23 sports. Our average region finish was 3.4. Our average state finish was 9.3, which is very significant considering we're in the largest class, 5A, where there's 33 schools. So our average finish is in the top 10, which is pretty significant. We have 7 activities that we recognize. Those kind of get divided up. You could call them more than 7, depending on how you look at it with band. If you're considering jazz band more than just band, then you would add that as another activity. And then 2 recognized club sports under 9046 that turned the paperwork in this year, ice hockey and mountain biking. One of the most impressive things every time I do this, look through, is that average team GPA, if we take that across the board, almost 3.7. We do that. Now, this is just the varsity teams. It doesn't include band, which is co-curricular. It doesn't include the co-curricular things because I can't pull those GPAs off the same way as when they're put into Power School as a team. And among our teams, we have 32 academic all-state students, which is very significant considering it's probably the hardest individual accomplishment any kid can get in the state of Utah. You have to have a minimum of a 29 ACT, 1300 SAT, and then there's a sliding scale from 3.2 up to 4.0 that you have to meet. So if you had a 29 ACT, for example, low one, you'd have to have a 3.9. If you had a 4.0, you're automatically in. So our kids do great, and that's also unweighted. You know how many AP classes our kids take, and so a lot of their GPAs are over 4, but when you unweighted it, drops it down like a 3.7, which doesn't take away from what they've done, but it does make it harder for them to be able to compete on the same scale with the rest of the state. So to get 32 it is very significant. We used to only have a handful before they changed it to the scale. So we finished 5th in the Deseret News All Sports Award. They just go by state finish, and they actually don't even take all the sports into account. They only take certain ones. And then we finished 6th in the UI AAA, which is the Athletic Director Association, their Director's Cup, which takes into account all the sports that people participate in. They're finishing state, takes into account team GPAs, which you see the average total there, and then also the sportsmanship that goes along with that, which we have to fill out a form with the UHSAA. So we had a pretty good year. The fall, some of the highlights from the fall, you can see up there. I put some participation numbers up there so you get an idea. Mountain biking down at the bottom has an asterisk because it is one of the recognized club sports, but girls cross country typically has the highest team GPA, and in fact, 2 years ago they did win the academic state champion award. Every year, the team with the top in that class gets a banner. So they won it a couple of years ago, and they also finished first in the regions. They had a nice one. Some of the sports, you'll see some NAs on there with all region, all state, simply because they don't recognize all region and all state for certain sports. A lot of the individual sports that are timed, you won't see all state or all region recognitions. And I put the academic all state up there if you want to see it. For example, girls tennis had 4. They had a great year there. Winter, we did have some significant things happen during the winter. Swimming had 5 top 3 finishes at the state meet, which was very good considering we are in the most difficult class because there's 33 schools, and you saw the Des News that we finished 5th there. The 2nd and 3rd teams we're also in our region. So we are in the toughest region when it comes to that. Olympus and Skyline both finished in front of us and had pretty good years. Boys wrestling had a 2nd place finish at state and 4th place. Girls wrestling had a 3rd place, a 5th place, and a 6th place. They only had 4 girls. And then ice hockey won their 3rd straight. They're one of the club teams. They won their 3rd straight state championship and had the state MVP. So winter's pretty good. And obviously, you can understand winter's a tough season for us because we're competing with that mountain to get our kids to do these things. So to do that well is pretty neat. Spring, the UHSA, once we added lacrosse, they've really overloaded us in spring. Spring is almost impossible to manage now. It's just getting so crazy. And then they're adding boys volleyball in 23-24. So if we add that, they're talking about moving that to spring, which I don't know how we're going to do that because it's hard enough with transportation and officials to get all these things done. But baseball went ahead and they played most of the year with the #1 RPI ranking. It dropped a little bit at the end. They won the 1st round of playoffs and lost in the 2nd. But for us, we are traditionally in baseball and softball. I shouldn't say traditionally. We're always the last team to actually get on their own field. I would say maybe even across the country. I need to look at that. But just because of elevation and because of the snow, we won't get on till 4, 6, or 8 weeks after the start. I know the turf thing has come forward in the past, but there is a reason for that. So baseball did well. Soccer had another pretty good season, even though their record didn't show it. All of their losses in region were by 1 goal. So it was a tough one for them. Boys lacrosse won the state championship. They had 4 academic All-Americans on their team, and they had the valedictorian and the salutatorian as part of their team, which is pretty neat. Girls finished 2nd in a heartbreaking match. If anybody was there, it was tough to watch. But they had 4 All-Americans, and they had Utah Miss Lacrosse, Sam Riley. So essentially recognized as the top lacrosse player in the state, which is pretty neat. Track and field set 7 school records this year. They've done a phenomenal job with them. The boys finished 1st in region last year. They had a 2nd place finish in state, and this year they had 7. So all in all, another great year for our kids. I'm continually amazed at the level that they step up to every time they get on the field. Year-round things, as I said, cheer will be going into a sanctioned activity with the UHSA. Right now it's not. It will be as next year. And so they're going to start competing. You can see the numbers in band, orchestra, choir, music program. Those are, Brett sent me some updated numbers, which are bigger than that, but they include some 8th graders, and I didn't want to add that in because I was just looking at 9 through 12. They're consistently superior or excellent in their ratings and everything they do. And you can see the all-state kids they have there. They do have academic all-state available to them, but we didn't have any kids put in this year. And then drama, they didn't compete. Purcell's done a little bit more of focusing on productions. And so they had 9 this year, which is pretty good. Debate, I think most of you are aware of the success of our debate program over the last 6 or 7 years. We've had quite a few kids competing nationally on the national stage and doing quite well. And then dance, obviously had multiple festivals and productions. And then looking ahead to next year, we're in for a realignment. The UHSA does realignment every 2 years. And so we will talk about it this winter. It will be decided this winter, and then it will take effect next school year for a 2-year cycle. So there's some confusion, I think, at times with the community and even in the school as to how this happens. The UHSA sets the alignment with the October 1 numbers from the state for 10 through 12 or 11 through 12. It depends on where you're at. So the higher classes usually use 11 through 12, and then 10 through 12, 3, 2, and 1. In 2018, we met because there was an alignment coming up. And we talked with the coaches, we talked with the students, and then we talked with parents. We had 2 meetings with parents. As to, we were in 4A, and we were going halfway across the state. And we had an opportunity because we were what's considered a bubble school. So they changed the number, but if you're now within 10% of the top number in the class, you are considered a bubble school. It used to be 7. So now what it's going to do is there's actually going to be more bubble schools than non-bubble schools. A bubble school means the board of trustees with the UHSA can essentially assign you either way as they see fit. They generally go with what you ask for if you're a bubble school. So in 18, we asked to go 5A from 4 because the travel was going to be less. It was less from a mileage standpoint. It was about the same from a time standpoint. We wound up in region 8. We didn't want to be in region 8. We wanted to be in region 6 where we're at now. They said, well, would you rather go back to 4? And Roger and Caleb were both in that meeting with me. I looked at them and I was like, what do you want to do? It's like, no, let's stay with 5. So that's how we wound up in region 8 down in Utah Valley the last cycle. This cycle, when it came through with where we're at now, the cards lined up right to where we're going to be able to be in region 6, which we think that's where the demographic and where we fit best with the East Bench. And obviously the travel is amazing. And it worked out really well. And so we can have another meeting coming up, but when I've talked to the coaches and even the kids that I've talked to looking into this year, they want to stay 5. Now I need to give the caveat of this. They do 2 alignments. They do a football alignment and then they do everything else. And so you could be a different class in football and a different class in everything else, but you can't choose. Lacrosse can't choose to be 4A and golf can't choose to be 6A. Once we set that, we have to be that for everything. The first time we did region 8, football was still 4. Football is now 5. So we're now across the board 5A. So that is the intent. I talked to Roger already about it again. It's not my decision. It's something that we talk about and go to those meetings with, decide, but that's where it's been best for us. Any questions on alignment that I can answer? If you got any questions from community members on anything or how it works?
I think the biggest pushback has been why football has a different alignment than all the other sports. That's what I've heard in the community. So I think that was you just answered.
Yeah, it was initially set. Now, at that time, we did ask Josh, we said, hey, the move is here. We'd love to come up. And he's like, we'll do it the next one. We're just not ready where we're at. I said, okay, that's fine. And so they moved up and they did very well in that region against some pretty good teams this year. So, and I think our kids have really responded. Every challenge we've asked our kids to take on, they've done well. And I think they're going to continue. I think as they get used to it, since it's really only year 3 that we've been in there, as they get used to it, we'll continue doing even better.
The only other thing I want to clarify, because it actually shows more impressive numbers, that all academic states just to seniors, right?
I'm sorry, I should have said that. Yeah,
So
it's just
would there be
seniors.
more?
Yeah, and it's seniors and cumulative GPA,
Yes.
which is, I mean, that's a body of work right there. That's pretty
The numbers
significant.
are.
Yeah,
more
it's
yeah.
pretty neat.
Yeah.
So, I mentioned cheer becomes sanctioned. So they've already said that we had a choice to say, yes, we're going to sanction, no. Initially, Ashley was on the fence, but she said, yes, we're going to, because we can still do some of the other competitions outside of sanctioning that would work. That's pretty much a winter season. I'd love to be part. I've heard of phase 2. If that brings up athletic facilities, love to be part of that, to give opinions about where we're at with things and some of the improvements we can potentially make with our facilities. We're starting to lag a little behind on some things. So it'll be nice to be able to update. And then, as I mentioned, boys volleyball will be sanctioned in 23-24. So they've given everybody an extra year. We don't have to do it. I don't know how we're going to get away from it. I mean, I'll be having to come again like I did for lacrosse to ask your permission to say, are you okay with this? We have had 6 to 10 boys in the past. I don't know they're going to have to move something off of spring if they put boys volleyball in spring. They've got to move. Boys soccer has come up, but we voted yes, but everybody else voted no. They're going to have to figure out what needs to move because we can't have 10 to 12 sports in the spring and only 6 in the fall. We did have our sport physical night again. That's sponsored by Intermountain and Park City Hospital in the spring. I didn't put that up there on the list, but we typically do that every year. It's not our program. It's actually run through Intermountain Park City Hospital, but it's put out there on the website, on social, where there's only about 200 or so slots, but South Summit does it with IHC as well as Wasatch. I think some of you probably taken part of that in the past.
Is there any, so there's no way that we're not in control of that, that we target families
We
who
partner
don't
with
have.
them. No, but I could.
Or doctors.
But I could. I mean, I
Okay.
could restrict it, or I could give certain people first right of refusal.
Access.
Yeah, or access.
Uh-huh.
People's Clinic does offer a free physical, so
Okay.
if for some reason they aren't
Okay.
able to get in with this one, it's probably about a half and half. Some people, they're already doing it as part of their wellness check, which is different than sports physical, although most of the doctors will do the sports physical when they're doing the wellness check.
Okay.
But that went well again, as well. Everybody's already uploaded the physical. Any questions that I can answer, or anybody on it?
Do you guys have any questions?
Thank you for all the support. I mean, our kids are doing wonderful things.
Thank you.
They're fun to watch.
It was fun to watch the spring. It was fun to watch the softball team. It was fun to watch the baseball team. It was
Yeah,
fun to
there's
watch
some,
football.
we, and I'll share this with you. I view my job is to put the best person available in front of those kids every single day. And we've got some really amazing people in front of them right now. And it's fun to coach the coaches and work with them to help create these programs for our kids. So thank you for all the support with that.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right. So, off to the superintendent.
Yes, we are going to combine the academic officer, the operations officer, and the superintendent report all into one giant PowerPoint. But I will not read you every slide, just some highlights, because otherwise we can be here a very long time. We'll see if we can get it back up there, and I can always do your favor here, if that works. But maybe I'll click on it. Mirroring. Okay, looks like we're lawyer, you can we're getting close. Hang on. Okay, that's perfect. There it is. All right, so very good. So graduation is always so exciting, and I know you've probably seen the highlights. We had the senior edition of the district newsletter go out, and that's always fun to kind of click through and see and give the stats. And some of those stats are shared at graduation, but 419 graduates, 110 different colleges, about 82% of the class goes on to 2 or 4-year programs. About 65% of our first gen kids are heading to 2 and 4-year schools, which is really exciting. This year's class had over $18 million in scholarships earned, which is really quite incredible. And just tells you, lots of success there, and your overall GPA was over a 3.5. And you heard from even the athletics participants, right, how the kids really push themselves and really do the best they can. You have about 17% of the kids involved in fine arts, so the different band and music programs. Over half participate in athletics, varsity athletics. Over 80%, this was an interesting statistic this year, over 80% of our students at the high school in the graduating class did participate in a job of earning money. So I thought that was a pretty high percentage of kids to do that. We had over 10% in Hope Squad, which is Suicide Prevention Club, and over 13% doing some community service work. So all of those great attributes we look for in a class, this group certainly has. So class of 2022, we are wishing them all the best as they head off to, as I said, 110 different universities and colleges all over the place. 8 students are studying abroad. So very proud of them and their accomplishments. We had teachers with some special recognitions this year. We had all kinds of great clubs and activities. The conservation team did a great job having us designated as green ribbon schools. So that means a focus on conservation and energy savings. So all along with our master plan and fund. Looks like you're driving. Great. The academic system really, during the pandemic, it was amazing how much work actually was done throughout the district on the instructional framework, doing inquiry cycles, classroom walkthroughs, really trying to bolster the core tier 1 curriculum to benefit every child, and then try to build multi-tiered system of supports for kids both academically and behaviorally. So all that's still in progress, but a really good, what we call base camp. So next year we start, the theme is Ascent, so kind of exciting. So really working towards kind of that 5-year academic plan. And in the slide deck that board members, you all have this, there's a link to an outcomes report from the academic team. There's also a next steps video. It's maybe like a 3 to 4 minute video that just kind of outlines everything that happened within the instructional system so that everybody across the district can hear the same information. And then it talks about what's happening next year with academics. And then I also put on there the ECRIS report. So the ECRIS is our external research company that helps us look at our student data. And it looks at students as individuals as well as cohort groups. And it lets us know how we're doing. It does kind of an analysis across cohorts. How are we doing on the access exam? And then we aggregate all of the assessments that all the kids take. And we do an analysis to see if kids are doing less than expected growth, at expected growth, or beyond expected growth. So in the midterm in January, I showed you a report where we were hitting expected growth, which is very good. That's like a year's worth of growth for every kid. Very solid. But when you look at this end of year report, you're going to see some kids really accelerated. A lot of grade levels, a lot of schools went beyond expected growth, which basically signals to us that we are reaching the pre-pandemic level. So it's very exciting news. So really happy with the academic system progress, and we will certainly all miss Dr. Hunt as she's off to Brazil. We have been working together on safe and inclusive schools programming and looking at all the things we need to do to make sure that we are removing any and all barriers to learning for kids. So the board's done such a great job of that with moving fees. The past couple of years with the pandemic, we've had breakfast and lunch for free, all these kind of great things. But we want to do everything we can within the classroom environment to ensure that we are providing access. We want to be able to see kids. We had about 66% of the kids in the senior class participate in dual enrollment courses. We'd love to see that number go up. We had a child who's not an adult, of course, but graduated maybe 10 years ago, took a couple dual enrollment courses. Those actually, even though they waited and deferred going to college, those credits still transferred in. So it's a really good investment to look at that. So as we're looking at our budget, we've changed some of our terminology. We're looking at roles a little bit differently, but we really want to focus on kind of an external program consultant to help us review our return on investment in all of our mini programs next year. And then teacher leads to really help us, almost like deans, to really help us with the academic and behavioral gaps that we are seeing to try to really provide school-based coaching, mentoring, support, and then success for the youth. We're also looking at Title IX internal compliance, because whenever something does happen that causes tension, it's not as easy as saying, hey kids, go play. It really takes an investigation. So we want to make sure we have the right supports to do that. Go ahead, thank you so much. And again, I won't read all the things to you, but basically here's a little summary of all the things that have been happening with facilities, where we've had obviously the master plan process. We're going to hear from our team in a little bit, so I won't steal their thunder as to what things are happening right now, but lots of things underway, and they've been still doing updates. We do updates on Tuesdays for our facilities and building projects. Transportation, I think you've heard this last month, where we have the UV lights now in the buses, and all the different kind of improvements there. With child nutrition services, next year, the federal government has taken away the ability to do the free lunch for everybody. So we're going to go back and do, leadership stats and data and do the best we can with our kitchens and programs. Our team's been amazing. They've done a great job. Kudos to John Hopkins. I think he's just been a great leader for, it's nice to have consistency, and then he keeps working on how to improve the programs. So very exciting. With security, you are going to see with the construction, especially at the secondary schools, kind of limited access to doors, right? Which is really actually good from a security practice anyway. So we're going to get into the practice of going into certain doors with RFID readers and, getting the kids kind of programmed into not going into all the 17 different doors, right? Just using kind of the front two so that we can man those a little bit better. So they great security practice. Mike does a great job of meeting with all of our local law enforcement agencies, usually big giant committee meetings, 30 to 40 people, several times a year, so that we feel like we're in really good communications and everybody kind of knows the protocols that are followed. One area of, I called it accomplishments, but also information on the slide deck. So some information, something that didn't happen kind of during the pandemic and then this year, we're seeing some lags in attendance, right? So when we have deans again, this kind of support to really encourage, getting people back into the habit of attending school, because you're always going to get your best results if you're present consistently. And we are not at pre-pandemic levels yet with attendance. The best rate of attendance is about 95%. You're kind of figure 95 to 100%. Because if someone's really sick, you want them to be at home, right? If you have a fever, vomiting, diarrhea, you don't want to be in a school setting. But other than that, right, we really want kids to attend. And so that engagement piece, that's actually the high school theme next year is engagement. How do you really reconnect, re-engage into the school system and get back to that like 90, usually like a really bad flu, you wind up being at 95%. So when we're less than that, we really want to work on that. So this is one of the reasons for that dean sort of role out of the coalition's recommendations, because attendance is a big access piece. And then behaviorally is the next chart. Last year we did have, as a district, counting both of our in-school and our out-of-school suspensions all together across the system, we did have about 51 suspensions. When you're thinking about suspensions, you're thinking about lost academic access and days. So we want to do all kinds of preventative programming so that the kids don't make the mistake that causes them to be suspended. And again, for an elementary student, that might be a short amount of time, but it still disrupts their learning and to family, who maybe needs to work. So for all of this, we really want to continue to work on those efforts and try to decrease those numbers. We want to really highlight anti-bullying next year. That's another thing where maybe we haven't talked about it as much during the pandemic because we've been talking about safety protocols. Now, kind of getting back to this student behavior. What does it mean? Name calling, all that kind of thing. We have right now 19% of the kids in our schools who did the portion who answered the Safe School Survey. About 19% report feeling bullied or harassed either online or in person. And so we want to make sure, again, that we focus on this, that we get those numbers reduced. Right now, the state average is 14%, so we're about 5% higher. So we'd like to work on really that. And that also takes community and parent education, because we all have to be attentive to this and then calling it out. So that, again, this is part of access. It's part of opportunity. If you feel you're not welcomed, you're not as engaged, you're not going to do as well. If you feel like there's an imbalance of power, in a classroom situation, it could happen once or it could happen multiple times, but it really can be upsetting, the trajectory for kids and how they attend to school. So this will be a big focus as well next year. Human Resources has done a lot of work during a time where it's hard to recruit people. It's, as Mary mentioned earlier, it's an expensive place to live and to work. They've done a great job filling those positions, facilitating important conversations like the 5 supports for educators meeting that we had in January, and redoing and updating all kinds of policies and making recommendations, making sure our Family Medical Leave Act is all correct, nepotism, parental leave policies, all of that. So doing a great job, and then continuing to keep an eye on the substitute workforce. Business services, do you want to talk with her a minute about all your successes?
It's been a good year.
Good.
So we made it through all of our audits, the state level, external level, federal level, all clean findings. So that's always something positive to look to. We went through our bond proposition and sold our general obligation bonds. And in that process, we received AAA ratings from 2 of the rating agencies, so kept costs down as much as possible. So that was good. So we're able to sell the bonds. So we generate 129 million needed for this phase of the capital projects, and so we're in good financial position that way. We've got our contracts in place for all of the capital projects, so that's not an easy feat, but we're keeping that rolling right now. And just looking to improve some internal processes, getting out of the paper world and into the electronic world, getting all those pieces in place.
Great. Tech and assessment, Tech did a major move from the high school. The area of the high school that's going to be demolished actually housed all of the servers for the district. So those were hopefully we would have been able to move them during April. They tried so hard to get everything lined up for that, and then the air conditioner arrived damaged, so it didn't quite work. But they prepped us all. They communicated well with us. They let us know we'd probably be down for 3 days, but we weren't. We were down for half a day, which was awesome. So they have 500 loaners out of computer devices for summer school, but otherwise collected everything. They're re-imaging everything, and our computer cycle, believe it or not, is like a 7-year cycle. You know, we use those computers until I can't use them anymore. So they've really done a great job of keeping things in great working order for us. So kudos to Tech. And again, I won't read every little thing on these slides, but each year, each of the schools, as you know, have school community council. You get to hear about their plans every year in the fall. Now at the end of the year, we have some highlights from each of the different schools. So my little font over there is too tiny for me to read, but basically Jeremy Ranch in reading went up 9%, which for as long as Mr. Kingdon's been there, he said that's probably like the largest amount of growth in 1 year he has seen. So that's pretty exciting. So great success at Jeremy. Jeremy also is recognized in the U.S. News and World Report as a high-ranking elementary school. So not only in Utah, but nationally, that's exciting. You can see at McClellan, oh, thank you. At McClellan, they also had some great data. Oh, there. 56% proficiency with a 2% increase over the state average, or over the school average for the previous year, and then 60% proficiency matched their average. But what's been really exciting district-wide is 2 years ago, we implemented the SEED standards, or the new science curriculum, and all of our schools have really accelerated their science scores. So across the district, you see science being in the top ranking, which actually, signals that kids are reading well, they're applying, and all the good skills that it takes to get a good science test score. Harley's added lots of different great data. There were 6 different systems that were added to Charlie's Park Elementary School this year to make things easier for staff and to make sure our data flows well. So Kim Howe, as a new principal with us, has done a great job implementing new things. The iReady math cohort data was a point of strength with, again, 4th grade. The kids went from last year as 3rd graders to 66% proficiency, this year up to 73%. And Kim attached some extra charts there for us to see. Just have to scroll. All right, then at Trailside, they also had some very good success with their EL learners. So they've been doing some targeted approach to direct instruction in English learning, and that has yielded about a 34% gain on the WIDA tests for our EL students. So that they met that goal, actually surpassed it, which was exciting. Edgar Hill gave us a great chart, big enough for me to read. And you can see between the beginning of the year and the end of the year, the growth that the kids made in reading and math. Very exciting. Treasure had an amazing year. They have a 5-year accreditation report with very few recommendations. They nailed their, they got together. They worked every Friday all the way up until December. The team came in, reviewed everything according to what they had planned and prepared. All they did was document what was actually happening in the school, and were recognized for their strong efforts. They also had a really strong anti-bullying campaign this year. They had a great form on their website so kids could anonymously quickly report an issue. So they really took some of those challenges head on. So really proud of Treasure. And the high school, obviously the seniors are always the success story. And the participation, I think, is huge, as Mr. Sheets shared. The other point of pride for the high school was that all teachers did participate weekly in the MTSS meetings, and that happened throughout the district with state visits to see how our MTSS and PBIS are going, because we love nothing more in schools but acronyms. So MTSS is multi-tiered system of support, which means if a child's not successful at something right away, what are the next tiers of strategies that we try? And then PBIS is what is the positive behavior support that we're trying to provide: positive motivation, copying good, encouraging all those behaviors we wish to see, and now doing that system-wide. So we are aligned with the state on all of that. In the Learning Center, all of our students did graduate. So that is a big success story for this year. And we had similar results with our special needs kids, all graduated. We do not have an overrepresentation of any specific racial or ethnic group in any of our disability categories. Sorry, that's next stronger things. Our end of level testing showed gains in every category. So if kids were below, they're maybe at, if they were at, they may be above. So that was very exciting news, and really, Jacqueline had a big smile on her face when she was sharing that information with us. We are looking at co-teaching as a model at both the high school, and we will be piloting that potentially at Carly's next year, where a class would have a special ed and a regular ed teacher together to be able to ensure that any of the kids with identified needs can stay as linked closely to the regular classroom as possible, but be given those supports as they need it. We would not have a success story each year if we didn't have CTE and computational thinking reporting. So Lindsay definitely asked if she could add this slide for the report, because she's so proud of the fact that we have a new aviation pathway for kids. Kids can graduate actually with a certification to do drone flying. I don't know if any of you have seen a drone show as of yet, like instead of fireworks. Oh my gosh, they're amazing. The timed lights and the different shapes they can make, or they can make it look like the drones are a firework. Really fun, really fun. So the fact that kids could get certified for this when they graduate, I mean, that's a high paying job, even if it's just something that helps them through college, it's amazing. We have the largest enrollment history in the history of PC CAPS. And if any of you have had children take a course, really wonderful. It's one of the things Jason still talks about. So really love that program. And I love that we've made it more accessible. It can be, it's instead of a double block, it's a single block. And it's a very inclusive. It takes the kids from all over the school where they can study engineering or computer sciences or architecture or all kinds of teaching, and all kinds of fun peeks into different career pathways. So Lindsay's been doing just an amazing job. She also secured a very large grant to keep computer science moving, about $200,000 to keep that program bolstered, so that we are kind of on that leading edge of having all kids have access to coding and computer science experiences. And CTE also oversees that concurrent enrollment, which we had talked about earlier. That dual enrollment, 66% of the kids participating, we hope we can even boost that, because the more they can get college credit during high school, it saves parents money later. So we're excited about that. Student services has really been helping us with how to streamline behavior reporting and tracking, or we call it instant management. As you know, for many years, we've been doing mindfulness practices, probably important now more than ever. Keep teaching us all to regulate and breathe deeply and take our time, be mindful and thoughtful. We track counseling office visits, nurses visits, worked on the MTSS manual so that we can be consistent across the district, as well as monitoring 504 procedures. At the high school next year, we have 150 students with 504. Those are all individual plans. So if you can imagine, that's a lot for the schools and the teachers to manage. So we want to meet every student's needs, but boy, that's a high number. And then student services also works with our outreach coordinators. And we have our engagement night at Treasure was really amazing this year. I talked about that last month. For our next steps, look at that, already at the end. Last slide, 27 slides in less than 27 minutes. It's exciting. We have put and have been working on a policy review cycle. For most policies, they come up on a 5-year review, but others, if a law changes, we usually have to bring something up for additional cross-reference. And all of you are pretty familiar with that, but we do have them all outlined so that we make sure we don't get off cycle. We are focusing on the portrait of the graduate, which is looking at, again, it really aligns with whole child. So you're looking at academic, social, emotional, behavioral indicators and success across the system. I told you our theme is working towards ascending the summit and bolstering our instructional framework. Our educator evaluation system is new, was piloted this year, so it's in full effect next year. All K-3 educators, I think I've talked with all of you about, they have a 2-year program, 2 to 3 years to get letters training. It's not a program, it's a science of reading. And statewide, that will be deployed during some of our Fridays. So teachers on Fridays will get that kind of training for K-3. At the same time, 4th and 5th grade, teachers will learn more about science, use of data, use of the different platforms that we have. They all get fancy names, but working towards that standards-based progress monitoring, basically. This year, we're up for the English language arts curriculum review with material selection, hopefully by the spring of next year. And we're going to keep bolstering our tier 2 interventions so that within a classroom, we should be able to handle doing the tier 1 core curriculum and then that first level when a student struggles. We should be able to keep that within the classroom, ideally. So we'll keep bolstering that. The inquiry cycles have been a big success for each of the schools. It gives you just targeted things to look at when you're going through and doing school visits and classroom visits. So we're looking at specific data, what strategies, what high yield strategies are being used, and we can talk to teachers about that. So it's kind of an exciting way to bolster the system in an appreciative way. We will continue our family and community engagement and communications partnerships next year. We're building some new ones and we have some nice structures underway for next year, including that website launch in, we hope, July. The master facilities plan you're going to hear about from our team with phase 1 construction starting this summer. And then the next 2 years, our secondary teams, and they were even working on this today, the principals, will have some secondary realignment committees or task force teams who take small topics and then talk about how that will look 6-12, 2 years from now. So that by the time we get there, it will be very smooth as to what is kind of the welcoming of 6th grade. What are the leadership opportunities for 8th graders? What does a 9-12 comprehensive high school feel like again? You know, so take some time to really think about all those things, and I'm sure they will come to you with some pretty frequent updates over the next 2 years and some recommendations. That is the bulk of it. And then on the bottom, I've already sent it to you, but I do have a draft of just some strategic goals that we can look at as a board team in the fall, and then wordsmith them or work on those, and then work on action plans into next year. So just to highlight, and then this PowerPoint is available so people can look at it. They can click into some of those different attachments and kind of gives you an idea of all the things that were happening during this busy school year. Thanks.
Thank you.
Thanks.
I have a quick question on the attendance. What is the logical explanation for the elementary attendance?
I think it's really just parents were really helpful in that if their kids felt icky, they didn't just send them
So that's
anyway,
like
right?
the kids who are, little kids
Yeah.
are always sick and they just kept them on.
Yeah,
So that's an anomaly versus how it normally looks.
correct. It's
Gotcha.
very different from how it normally looks these past 2 years. So we do understand it. We want people, obviously, like you said, if you have a fever, to stay home. But I think we have to get back to the better. It kind of gives us better chance to do better. Teachers did mention, especially towards the end of the year, sometimes it was like March or April before they had the whole class together to actually do a lesson. So you can imagine how disruptive that can be, right? If you don't have everybody there to hear it and you're constantly reteaching. So it's been a challenge. We've had lots of challenges, but lots of successes. Excellent. Thank you, Lori, for driving that for me.
Thank you. All right, Mocha, would you guys like to join us up here?
You know more than you ever wanted to know, didn't you? That makes it-
I'm gonna try to make this a little shorter. That's okay with everybody. Thank you. Good afternoon. I'm Paul Ernst with MOCA, sitting in for David today since he is on vacation. What we'll do is just run through the elementary schools first. I'll give you a brief update of where everything stands. We'll go through the middle school and the high school. If you've got questions, feel free to throw them out as I'm going. McPolin Elementary School and Jeremy Ranch, I think as we updated last month, we were in the process of receiving, the contractor received bids. They were scrubbing the bids. And so since then, there's been a lot of work that's gone into looking at bids and looking at the work scope. We've just recently received the guaranteed maximum price of the GMP for both McPolin and Jeremy Ranch. We received them yesterday evening. So we're in the process of going through those ourselves now with the contractor and with the district. It's good news overall, considering that we're working with budgets that were really established, a year, 2 years ago, with everything that's going on with the economy. But McPolin right now, we're sitting at about 1.6% over budget, which is pretty tight in the grand scheme of things. And Jeremy Ranch, we're looking at right now about a 3.5% over budget condition. So we're going to continue to work through those numbers. We're looking at our internal budgets, looking at contingency, and looking at, again, scope to see what we can do to get those in line. At the same time, they have begun mobilizing on those two sites. Some construction fencing, if anybody's been by them, there's some construction fencing that's gone up. There's some selected site demolition, beginning on the concrete, some site features at McPolin. And Jeremy Ranch, we got the same thing, site fencing installed, a little bit of selective demolitions beginning in order to maintain schedule. We've got to hit the ground and get into the field. For Jeremy Ranch, we've got a little bit of a twist that we ran into working with the county. There's a 100-year storm requirement that was not anticipated, a requirement that's been mandated that we follow. Park City Legal has actually gotten involved with the conversation just to make sure that we're actually obligated to comply with this requirement. But it may end up, it could possibly cause the addition of a fairly large detention basin that would have to go underground just simply because we don't have the site to make a retention pond. So we're still working through those issues right now, hoping to resolve that in the next couple of weeks. Trailside Elementary and Parley's Park were both kind of put on the back burner. That programming design process is going to pick up as the year goes on, with the intent of being done by the end of the year, first of next year, and then bidding and starting construction the summer of next year. And that is our Hughes VCBO team with those 4 schools. Ecker Hill Middle School and Park City High School, the Hogan MHTM team. That got a little bit delayed due to some square footage, some over calculation from a square footage perspective with the design that's been redesigned since our last discussion a month ago. We are looking at a bid package going out for both of those schools. The bid package 1 for the schools is currently out on the street with bids due the 28th. We've got a bid package 1 is going to be the site and some demo and site civil work. Bid package 2 will be the school, the construction of the school and finishes. We're expecting as that bids back for the site, the bid package 1, July 28th. We think they'll be able to get through those pretty quickly. The goal is to begin construction there middle of July. So that's going to be a pretty fast turnaround as well, but it's only going to be a couple of subcontractor bids to go through for the bid package 1. Bid package 2, we're looking at a release date for the bid package of August 2nd. We're expecting bids back 2 weeks after that. So the site demo and site work will be going on while we're getting the bid package 2. At the same time, we are expecting to have some issues with pricing. Again, we don't want to try to forecast this thing and get overexcited, but we do think there'll be some rework we've got to do, some discussions that we'll have to bring those within budget as well. But again, it's we feel good about the results on the first two elementary schools to be as close as we are right now, given what's happened in the economy in the last year, where the price of gas and diesel is now. There's a lot of unknowns out there. And then we have, Hogan has begun to mobilize for the Park City High School site, and there's going to be some activity happening with the middle school as well here over the next couple of weeks. So from a high level perspective, that's where we stand with the program right now. If you've got any specific questions or particular questions you want to ask, feel free.
I guess one thing about the two elementary schools, which we're mobilizing right now, Jeremy and McCollin. One big concern I've heard from parents is the lack of outdoor space because of the way the extension's moving out in the parking lot and they're taking away the playground, and it's not clear on the plans. What are the plans for playground space at those two schools once you essentially demolish it and turn it into a parking lot and have space?
I don't have that site plan. Do you want?
It's basically a relocation of what's getting lost. So
they're taking the playground and moving it onto the
Correct.
grass.
That's correct. Yeah, I do know that, I maybe you know that, Todd. I do know there's a new set of playground equipment purchased for one of those schools that's gonna be installed. It might be Jeremy or Ange.
Okay.
So, but you're not losing them, they're just being relocated.
And what about, I know specifically by Germany, they use that space for lacrosse games and things like that. If the playground's on there, are they then losing that space for community lacrosse games and soccer and such?
I'm not familiar with this space you're talking about, Jeremy.
Kind of big grass area on the back that they
You have
use.
the kind of the hill on the upper side of the
Yeah.
school and then the playgrounds on.
I would say you're losing that,
There.
but you still have that additional area to the south there. So I'll have to look into that.
So I'm curious. Okay, thank you.
And we do plan to start kind of a public outreach update on the website over the next month or so. And so I'm thinking we'll probably have some elevations and site plan posted there, as well as
Yeah.
construction progress photos
Okay.
for people to
That would
refer
be
to.
great,
and
because I know the
it'll-
general
yeah,
plans were kind of.
It'll provide a lot more insight. Yep.
Anybody else?
I was just gonna say to jump on that for the August, school starting August 17th. Something like that.
Yeah.
And that's just, as you're coming back, you're gonna see fences and just.
We plan on starting that, I think the website, and I'll confirm with Mike Tanner, but I think we're looking at July to kind of get that in place so that when everybody comes back, there's something formula yet.
Perfect. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
All right, Todd, I'm turning it over to you. Yeah. Sure. Do you want me to switch to public?
Yeah.
Okay, huh? Do you want me to do that?
All
All right.
Does anybody else make a quick break for read? Okay,
All right, we were, since it's already 5 o'clock, I'm gonna switch the schedule around a little bit and go to public comment. So the Board of Education wants to hear live input from community members at our meetings. In order to respect and preserve the time allotted to each presenter on the agenda, each speaker will be limited to 3 minutes. Speakers representing a group are limited to 5 minutes. If you wish to address the board, please read and complete the blue public comment sheet on the table by the door and give it to the board clerk, Ms. Laurie. And each speaker will be invited to the rostrum to speak in order in which the form is received. Please state your name clearly for the record. The Board of Education expects that all public comment will be polite, respectful, and accurate. Please refrain from specifically identifying personnel. Personnel issues, even if it is about yourself, are not appropriate for the public comment. Therefore, such comments will not be allowed. So, Lori, do we have any?
Okay.
If you want, if we take my presentation, we can just put it, tag it onto the hearing.
Okay.
Let me go through the first few minutes.
Let's just do that. That's a great idea. Are you guys all comfortable with that? We're gonna move Todd's presentation to the very first part of the hearing.
Okay.
And then we'll just move forward. So we'll do this and. Okay, perfect.
So your conditioner?
Right. Are you hot?
Stuck in here.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Corey, do you want to?
No, it's more so.
All right, I will invite Stephanie Graham up to. Sure.
My name is Stephanie Graham. I'm at Columbia. I'm a parent here in the Park City School District. I have a daughter that goes to Jeremy Ranch and another 3-year-old who I pay lots of money to do private education. As a working parent, I'm just here to just kind of voice concern about a couple things. Number one is the, and I don't know how much the school board gets involved in this, but you know, the opportunities for preschools within our school district. And I understand that there is a little bit of opportunity, but for those of us that have full-time jobs, those hours do not work, honestly. It's very, very limited. Even the ones, even for 4-year-olds, you know, 4-day from 8 to 3 is great, but that doesn't work for many of us. And so we're trying to connect the divide between those of us that have to actually be employed and work during the day and those that, you know, don't. You know, one thing I just want to be able to promote is more preschool opportunities and better hours, whether it's Camp Hawk or it's longer school days, whatever it happens to be. So that's my first comment. Second comment is to, Mandy's heard my comment on this about the outdoor space at Jeremy Ranch. This is a concern. You know, I know we all voted on a bond and everyone here is paying for the construction of the new building there. And so there is a concern that we are losing outdoor space at Jeremy Ranch. And one of the things that we want to do is just be able to continue to have the opportunity to have the outdoor space and do proper development, you know, for, you know, the area out there, for the children, for the natural resources itself, for floods, whatever happens to be. So there's a concern about that. And then I don't know, I would like you guys to respond to the timeline. The other gentleman did not say what the timeline was on it, on the construction from start to finish would be good to know. And then that communication with parents within the school district would be really helpful. So right now it's really been very minimal. I've had to email multiple people or make phone calls. I just quit my job. I'm starting a new one in 2 months. So you actually get me in person. So as I'm here supporting my parents, I'm also finally here because I don't have to go to work today. So that's basically the biggest concerns that I have is the construction at Jeremy Ranch and opportunities for preschool within our school district.
Great, thank you.
Right.
Do you want it?
The-
I will let you, yeah, if you want to.
So one of the reasons why we're expanding Jeremy is to put in a big preschool. So, I mean, it's good timing. It's like relevant you're asking.
Is it actually longer hours and it
So
doesn't actually
there-
allow for more opportunity? Is that budgeted in or is that like a separate thing?
Yeah, so the concept is to have 2 larger preschools and 2 smaller ones. There's going to be a larger one at Jeremy and at Poland, so kind of on either end of town, with the thought being that there'll be some pre-care and post-care, or like pre-hours and post-hours, depending on whatever you call it, with the specific intent of making it more relevant and like, you know, so it will work for working parents. That's the main goal, as well as providing universal pre-K. So, you know, I think we have, I don't know what the last count was, but like 150 kids that would attend, 150, 200 kids in the district who would attend some sort of preschool if it was open and available or if the hours were increased. And so that's our goal. And that's one of the big line items in the budget that are going towards it. I don't have I can't picture the map in my head of what we're losing.
Yeah.
It's
Where the current playground.
Yeah,
Well.
I mean, there's definitely some outdoor space that's going away to make room for the square footage that's being added, but I don't think it's massively significant. So
It looks
So
pretty
again, it's,
significant on what I've seen. It's the basketball courts plus the playground areas.
yeah, so the hard top playground area will slide to the east where there's been grass area. So there is some change in what is available.
yeah. I mean, there's definitely some that's moving, right? And that's because we're adding considerable square footage to the school to help, provide the preschool.
Yeah,
So it's kind of, I don't know, it's like the good and the bad of it, right? The good news is we'll have preschool. The bad news is we'll have less outdoor space.
I would say there are hundreds of people on waiting lists at private daycare facilities in this town because
Well, that's what I'm
they're the
saying.
only ones that allow for those hours.
Yeah, so we're aware of it, and that was one of the big asks from the community over the last several years. And, it's something that is not provided by the state, right? So we're going to be the only district in the state of Utah to provide that type of service. And it's a big deal. I think eventually, hopefully, the state legislature looks at it and says, oh, this is a good model and we should kick in funding to pay for it. But, for now, it's going to be paid for by our district, and the Park City Ed Foundation also contributes quite a bit of money towards preschool, and they'll be upping their ante as well. So it's, very good questions and super relevant. And kind of the bad news is, yeah, we're losing some outdoor space. The good news is we're solving kind of problem number one, which is the preschool.
And timeline.
And in terms.
Oh, I think it's 2 years.
James Street, yeah.
Yeah, so each one, as it starts, is 2 years. So
June 2024.
this one's starting in what, August?
Sounds like Jeremy
And
might
then
not start.
So,
Right, and now
yeah,
that's
yeah, once
changed.
it's starting.
The goal is to have each of the projects done 2 years from when they start. And I think he just said that Jeremy's going to be starting this summer.
Yeah, so Jeremy and McCollum are starting now. And
So-
it should be done third quarter 2023. So in anticipation of the school year.
So probably by the time your third graders in kindergarten, they'll be,
3-year-olds, yeah.
Yeah.
I know, we're not gonna make it in, but I at least want to advocate for others like myself and.
no, we're doing everything as quickly as possible. And I think that's roughly from each start, it's about 2 years before the kids can be in the new space. Yeah.
I think also, communicating that with staff there. So for instance, Camp Hawk folks, the teachers were packing up saying, we're gonna have a new building in the fall. And I was saying, wow, that would be a shocker. So I think communication. in the schools too.
Yeah, that's definitely been,
there's been a lot of communication.
yeah,
that
it's
has gone
definitely,
out,
but we
so
recognize that we
yeah.
need to do more updates, and that's what we'll be doing over the summer.
As it
So
keeps
thank you.
changing and shifting as well.
Yeah.
All right, Kelly, if you'd like to join us. And just to be careful, just
Yes,
because it
of
is
course.
personnel is what you have on here, so
Yes.
I just want to phrase that.
I don't have any
sensitive as
insider
far as,
knowledge. Sure.
Names and stuff,
Oh,
so.
okay, sure, of course. My name is Kelly Montford. I have 2 kids at McFarland Elementary. And I honestly didn't even intend to do a formal input, but I was coming to see if there's any update on the information that had come out of McFarland about our principal position.
Yes, so
And
again, it was approved in the consent agenda. So you will be getting your new principal, and it is Angie Duffner, yeah, is going to be your new principal at Duffner. Yeah, and then, yes, we can move along, so it was on there. Mr. Ed will be moving to the high school as an assistant principal. It's something that he was super excited about. And then Tracy Fife will be the new principal at Trailside.
Tracy was the assistant principal at the high school. Angie was at the district for a long time and left, returning. So we're excited about that.
And I believe she was at McCollum before she
Yeah,
left.
she was
So
at- she was in
she's
the
very
building.
familiar with the staff in that building, so she should be a great addition.
I voted myself into the PTO president position, so that's why I'm trying to.
Yes.
Like, go find out.
Yeah, so I know Mr. Ed has sent out something to everybody,
Yeah.
but yeah, I kind of had to waited until.
We had to
today,
approve
so
the
it'd be approved.
contract.
I know.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah,
Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you.
Fresh.
all right, Chris Choi.
These are for all of you.
So again, this one is a little bit on the personnel. So I just want to make sure, yeah, we're just careful, that's all.
I'm gonna
Perfect.
speak to the positions specifically.
Okay,
not the
perfect. Perfect.
Okay. So, my name is Chris Choi. I'm here to discuss the superintendent, contract. The current superintendent employment agreement, for one thing, is supposed to be included in the meeting minutes, according to the contract, but it isn't.
It will be now as soon as it had to be approved.
Okay.
Again, it was similar to what just happened with the principals. It had to go through approval before it could be moved into public. So that's how that works.
So then how does it work that the 2022 contract, for 2022, 2023 is coming up for discussion today?
So we do her contract rolls on a 2-year rolling. So that's how it has been and how we've done it. So it was just the process that we continue to review and then roll it into a 2 years.
Okay, so then why is the February 1st date written into the contract for written notice to Dr. Gilday?
Because I think if I'm correct. it's-
So it's a 2-year annual, it's a 2-year contract, which is dictated by the state, right? So the two contracts that can only be 2 years are the business administrator and the superintendent. They can only be 2 years, they can't be longer, they can't be shorter. And every year we can renew them or not renew them. And we have a legal obligation to inform the district, the superintendent and the business administrator by a certain date, whether we're choosing to renew them or not. And that gives them an opportunity, if we're not renewing, to find another job. And that's just a element of the contract.
Okay, and that date is February 1st?
I don't know offhand that it's February 1st, but
It's
that
right.
sounds right.
Yeah.
That sounds right, yeah.
So then I assume that she did?
We've renewed the superintendent's contract.
Yes.
Yes, correct.
Okay, which brings me to a few other questions. Within that contract, it is stated, the superintendent shall serve as the chief executive officer of the board and as the supervisor of all staff and activities of the district. In this duty, the superintendent has allowed for failure to report child sexual abuse to authorities.
Okay, so a
Yes.
couple of things. So first of all, this is exactly what we said is not allowed.
Yeah.
So talking about a specific person is not welcome in public comment. And we're also not going to comment on any legal matters that are continuing to be pending. So you can, we'll move on. Is there anything else?
Yeah, quite a bit. The superintendent is responsible to direct the work of all employees and volunteers of the district. The superintendent has issued volunteers through both behavior program and by outsourcing and hiring, forcing longtime volunteers to re-interview, which significantly reduced our volunteerism and inhibits the hiring process.
Okay, so again, like your time, first of all, the time's up. Second of all, it's not the forum to have a conversation about 3 minutes.
It's 3 minutes
I'm
unless
here
you're.
as a representative.
Yeah, but you can't talk about a specific employee.
Employee.
Right? Like that's what this is about, right? It's a hit job on the superintendent. We're not going to sit here and take it. So unless you have something to discuss that's outside of what we just discussed about the superintendent, it's over.
Okay, then I'll go back to hit job, which is the term you coined about the survey that was conducted by PCSD stakeholders.
So your time is up, so
That was 5 minutes.
It's 3 minutes.
it,
What group do you represent?
PCSD stakeholders.
Which is what?
The group that ran the survey that
Which
you
is you.
actively discouraged.
Which is you.
No, it was a group.
The anonymous group that you took credit for.
No,
Yes.
You're done. Bye. See you later. Thanks for coming in.
well, I do believe you just violated your own bylaws.
No,
So
you didn't.
thank you.
No, we didn't. You have a limit. We asked you not to speak about personnel, which you continue to do. We asked you to keep to a time limit, which you didn't do. So
I
thank you.
spoke about a position. Not
Spoke about an individual.
No, I spoke about a position. And
There's
I
one,
did keep to the time limit. You let it expire early. Here,
right, thank you. Read the rules.
I would advise you to do the same.
We have no further public comment. Let's move on to the Board of Education meeting calendar. Can I please get a motion to approve the Board of Education meeting calendar for the upcoming year?
To make a motion to approve the calendar for that coming year.
Second.
Second, perfect. Is there any discussion on this one?
No.
Perfect. It does include the truth and taxation, which would be on August 16th. Okay, perfect.
We checked this against all the holidays.
Yes.
We've been, yeah, minus Valentine's Day.
Oh, that's a good one.
All right, all in favor?
Aye.
All right, that's unanimous. Right, we will move on, to policies for adoption. Can I please get a motion to approve policy 11010, school district property rental and fee schedule?
I make a motion to adopt policies as stated.
Second.
Did we get any feedback on this one, Lori or
I did
Todd?
not.
We did not. Perfect. Do we have any discussion on this before we move forward? Perfect. All in favor?
Aye.
All right. We will move now to closed session. So can I please motion to move to a closed session? The board will adjourn for the purposes of strategy, discussion of purchase, exchange, and lease of real property, discuss the character, professional competence, or physical or mental health of an individual. Mandy? Ann?
Yes.
Yes.
Yes. All right. Move forward.
I think they are.
Yeah, they're right, they're twins, right?
Yes.
Okay. All right, so we will regroup, and we're gonna actually go back to our discussion of budget updates. So I will have Todd lead us through the budget update since we have 10 minutes, 15 minutes before the hearing.
Oh, was it on?
I didn't turn it on.
Got time. Now. Well, here we get ready to talk, people leave the room. We're gonna get a complex. I probably should.
All right, no, we're ready for you. You just go.
I didn't want to leave Ann out.
Oh, I think you can start. Let's get, because we only have about 10 minutes
All
before
right.
that.
We'll go pretty quick. All right, so just a recap of the current environment, the new growth within our property taxes is about 2.9%. We're projecting around 3%. That's new properties coming online. That's not assessed valuations. Assessed valuations went through the roof. They're like over 38% increase in assessed valuations. Now that doesn't directly translate into new revenue to the district, and I'll show you some other slides to explain that. But that, as far as the money goes, we're looking at a 3% increase there. We had 6% on the WPU, and then we're also looking at declining enrollment. So, we do have federal funds. The ESSER money still continues. The ARP ESSER in particular carries through to fiscal year 24, so that those dollars are built into this budget. Try to keep to the strategic priorities that have been set forth. This budget does include the year 3 contract elements. So that's in there. I've got a slide to talk about the rest of the comp package. We also have the revenues related to the master plan and finance. So that's all in there. Here's our strategic priorities that we've talked about for the last 3 or 4 months together. Just want to make sure they were there. Okay, so this is the budget in a snapshot. Just take one page, everything. What you're looking at here in that first column is the general fund. And we have a balanced budget insofar as the revenues and the expenditures are offsetting each other, but we also have some outside obligations. So you have what's called other sources and uses of about $1.1 million. So those dollars will come out of reserves and will impact the fund balance for the end of the year. That's the increases you see there. We have our student activities fund, our increment that we pay for RDAs in the area. And so here's just a snapshot of everything. I wanted to hold quick attention to the capital projects fund. You'll notice here that we have what looks like a huge deficiency of $77 million. But that's a timing issue. The bond proceeds from the general obligation bond and the revenue, the lease revenue bond came in this year. So you see that down here as fund balance of $122 million. So the monies are there. Now we're going to start expending them. And so we will, for the next 2.5 years, actually have this deficiency position as we draw down those proceeds from our bond sources. So not to panic, it is a big number. It's a big negative number, but the proceeds have come in this year and then will begin to be spent through the next several years. So those are probably the big picture all on one page. Coming to the general fund, we talked about assessed valuations going up by some 38%. That has impact on the basic levy. The basic levy is the levy set by the legislature, and it's based on an average of all property taxes across the state. And depending on how our district moves in relation to that aggregate of the state, we can actually see tax rates not drop enough to cover the assessed valuation growth, because usually there's an inverse relationship. That happened to us this year, so we have a large increase of additional revenues coming in, most of that related to the basic levy. So we have revenues coming in of about 15.5, but we're going to give back through recapture 11.2 million. So I wanted to call that out on this page in particular. It's great to have assessed valuation growth on some fronts, but on recapture, it's not a good deal for the basic levy. And that's the only levy that's subject to recapture. The other levies, we retain all the revenues. So it ends up, even though it looks like a 16% increase in revenues and a 17% in expenditures, when you get down to it, our expenditure budget for next year is a 5.6% increase. It's not 17, it's 17 because we have to give back that recapture portion. So that's what's happening there in the general fund. Here are the sources as they come in. We will be going into reserves to balance this year's budget. These are the list of expenditures that we've talked about for the last little while. And again, call out our biggest piece of money, almost $5 million, has to do with compensation. So we'll spend some time talking about that. About $2 million is related to the compensation agreement. This has a 2.5% COLA for administrators and ESPs. And it's the third year step towards that starting salary of the master's lane at $60,000. It turns out to be about a 3% increase on that schedule on average, more so in the earlier years than in the later years. So that's built in, and then it has a step increase for each of those employee groups. The next piece, $1.7 million, is the regional housing and transportation allowance. This is a 3 times increase. So currently it's 1,200, it'll go to the 3,600. And this is the price tag to do that. It affects all employee groups except for administrators. Administrators have different compensation pieces in play. So that's what's happening there. The legislature gave us almost $620,000 for an additional 32 hours in this upcoming school year. So teachers would be able to put plans together for how they would use this professional time. And they'll then work those through with their principals and be eligible for that pay. We've included a substitute pay incentive to encourage or to incentivize multiple assignments. So instead of one here, one there, maybe now again, this would be an incentive to encourage them to do multiple assignments in a shorter period of time, so that we're able to have a reliable source of substitutes and that they are compensated well for being available on that basis. Then we also did a salary study of our administrator salary scale and saw that in the later years of our scale, we're not competitive. And so we're looking at adjusting that schedule so that we can attract competent and qualified administrators into the district. So that's our comp package that's coming together this year. These are all, the first item was negotiated and the rest are recommendations that we're making as we look to the current environment of employment. There's probably, it was already mentioned, that this might be a good opportunity to revisit the 4-year contract, even though we're going into year 3. It may be to everyone's benefit to call the negotiating teams together and see if there's interest in revisiting the 4th year of the contract, especially in light of the inflationary pressures that we're seeing right now. They just were not anticipated 4 years ago when we were negotiating.
So I think if we could get a workforce study done right away, I think that would be the first step that the board would really like to see as we start to move things forward. But a workforce study across the board would be great.
Perfect.
So you guys could please do that.
Yep, we'll take that and run with it. On the capital projects, this is our standard capital ideas with safety and maintenance and sustainability. These are the projects that you saw on the list. They're in their groupings. including the lease payment, which represents that lease revenue bond payment. Here's the master plan projects. I put it together in several different ways just to see how it's related. 61% of the projects are bonded with the GEO bond. And so that's how that's coming together. And then of the bond, you can see that 42% of that is related to the high school. The other two smaller portions are the elementary schools out of the GEO bond. And this is our spending schedule for the next 4 years. So we're trying to keep on top of all of that. This is all baked into the budgets. This is the exciting part. This is where people start paying attention because now we're talking tax rates. And this screen is already outdated because 30 minutes before the board meeting, the State Tax Commission released what the basic levy is going to be, which will be a 0.01652 instead of the 61. So there'll actually be a decrease in the basic levy. So as we're looking forward, so that'll drop the judgment, or not the judgment, the debt service levy. This is what we went to through the bond proposition. So this is what that rate turns into to generate $5 million that we need to make the payments. The voted leeway drops driven by the certified tax rate process. The board local levy doesn't drop by as much because we are going to retain some of that money that otherwise would have dropped to balance the budget. So we're holding on to about $1.6 million of board local levy revenue in that process. The charter levy drops, that's set by the state, and then our capital local levy drops under the certified tax rate. So we're looking at about a 9% drop in the rate, not the bill, but the rate itself. Overall is expected to drop 9%, a little over 9%. So what does that mean in dollars? So I run a scenario here where you take a home or a business at $100,000 of assessed valuation and look to see what is the tax impact. So this column here is where we are this year, so about $228 per 100,000. If your home is $1 million, just multiply that by 10. And you get the number. And then we look at this upcoming year with the tax rates per 100,000, it's $207 or about $21 less per 100,000. But remember, assessed valuations went up. So your house last year isn't valued the same as it was or is this year. So you might have some more 100,000 increments. So I put an example together just to help connect how the rates move with assessed valuations. So here we have in the gray, this is if you had a home valued at $943,000. And I grabbed that number because that's what the county calculated as our average within our district boundaries back in August when we were going through the bond proposition process. So I grabbed that just for fun. It was a number that had already been published. So this is what the tax amount would be given the rates that were in place, so $2,100. That same average for our jurisdiction moved up to almost $1.1 million. So same pool of properties, just 6 months later, really, is what you're looking at here. We calculate the new rates that you would be adopting, and the tax bill comes in at $2,200. So essentially $118 increase. So again, rates did go down and noticeably down, but because of the valuation of your property, you may be paying more. And this is very individualistic. You have to look at each property individually because these are calculated on the aggregate. But we're in where we thought we would be, about $100 on the debt service and reductions due to the certified tax rate. It's great to see. And it mitigates the impact on a homeowner. Doesn't negate it, but it mitigates it. So if I put in the new tax rate of 0.01652, this change is about $5 less. It'll be about $2 related to the basic levy. So that was my short review of what's in the budget, and then we have, because we are not allowing the basic levy to drop all the way to the certified rate, we'll have a truth and taxation hearing scheduled for August 16th after our regular session on that Tuesday.
So a couple questions. I mean, it sounds like MOCA has done a pretty good job of keeping costs down, but there's, you know, to me, it sounds like they're profit warning us a little bit.
Yeah.
Do we want to keep the capital levy flat to accommodate for anything like that? Or like, what are the other levers that we can pull, right? I mean, because I think, you know, inflation is running at 10% and we're running 1% over budget, which is a miracle, but that may not continue, right? Should we be more responsible and not cut the capital levy as much?
Or let it drop, yeah.
Yeah.
So the challenge with the capital levy is that it's once you set it in place, it's ongoing unless you reduce it in future years.
Mhm.
So that one's a little tricky, but it's definitely an option. We're also looking at the contingency. So we knew going in that there was going to be price escalation, and even under MOCA's advice early on in the process, when we were setting how much we wanted to go to bond for, they said, oh, you need to build in some more contingency because of the marketplace. So we had already built in some additional contingency. Whether it's enough to get us all the way to the end of the row, I don't know yet. And that's the math that we're doing now, is how far can we get knowing these price increases. So we have contingencies built in. We also have in the capital reserve, we didn't run it to zero. So we have monies in that, as well as contingencies that are on the contractor side. So we're looking at all the pools of money that are available to us right now as we try to balance this out. So
Yeah, I just wonder if maybe we keep that in flat for a year and see how the projects go, right? And then we can always drop it next year. But that could be the difference between.
And we can also pick it up next year as well. So we don't use it until we need it. Because right now.
Yeah, but I almost wonder though, like, there's a difference between raising the taxes and keeping them flat, right? I mean,
I'm pretty sure your certified rate will drop again next year. So it'll be another scenario of, do you let it drop all the way to the certified rate or something just above the certified rate? So this scenario will play out again next year, I'm pretty certain. Even if we went into a recession, the property assessed valuations, even when we go back to the Great Recession, grew in those years, but we didn't go backwards.
yeah, I mean, I'm just worried that we'll end up in a situation where we're running an inflation of 10%. You know, that's, you know, should we get there, that's another $10 million, right, on the project, $13 million, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so maybe we don't let the capital levy drop this year and we keep it, you know, we keep it flat
Mm-hmm.
to have a buffer, right? We can always cut it next year, right?
Yep.
I mean, there's room to cut it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, our promise was we're not gonna, you know, raise taxes beyond the debt service, which we're not. We're actually cutting taxes. So, you know, I think that's still in line with what we've agreed on, just kind of being a little bit more conservative in terms of having a potential surplus or, you know, cushion should things get even crazier.
What would the practical impact of doing what it be right now?
$19.
$19
a
on
house,
taxes.
yeah.
Okay. And in operations, like, how would that impact?
So it won't impact operations. So this
I
is.
mean, not operations, capital and.
Yeah, so in holding it levy
There
or
was
holding
not-
it level, we want to be sure that the dollar amount that's being raised by holding it level is one that accommodates either the concern we have, 10% inflationary growth, or is some targeted amount that we want to get towards. And not just an arbitrary, oh, hold it flat and keep whatever we get. You know, we probably want to do just enough math to make sure that it's not going to generate $10 million when we maybe need only 5 or something like that. And I can run those numbers, and you don't have to make a decision now. You're going to go into a public hearing here in just a second.
Okay.
And then after you might have some other ideas come up from the public as well. And once the hearing portion of the meeting concludes, you can pick up the discussion and decide what you want to do about the levy. And I'll try and run some math really quick while that's going. Because at the end of the day,
we can always pass the budget theory and then decide on the tax rate.
So today's the tax rate.
Or we have to decide on the tax rate today as well.
Yeah.
Yeah. Is it for?
Okay.
I just worry.
So will you run those numbers while we, okay. So, okay, perfect. All right, so we will move on to the budget hearing part of the meeting. This is the time where we ask if the public would like to come up and speak about the budget, that they can join us at the rostrum. Do we have anybody that would like to speak about the budget this evening? Thank you. What'd you say? She said thank you. Just waiting for Carolyn.
Alex, did you hear that? Did you hear that? Teachers Union saying thank you.
Someone take the 3 minutes.
Okay, it's gonna take 2 minutes. Nobody?
The only other question I have is around the substitute budget line item. It's 80,000 for the incentives. Do we think we need to add anything to that for sign-on bonuses or permanent subs or anything like that?
What is
I
that
forget where we
80,000
left
put them at per day?
So it's not a per day calculation. It's
Okay,
an
thanks.
add-on to their daily rate. So if you'll commit, let's say that the scenario is, if you'll commit to doing substitutes for 3 days in a row, we'll give you an extra $50. I'm just making this up, but it's just, it's that kind of an idea. So it doesn't turn into a daily rate change or an hourly rate change. It's just, if you'll commit to a longer engagement, we'll bring more money.
And long-term subs get a larger.
So long-term subs are actually, the ones that we've built in are a compensated position or contracted position.
How many did we build in?
Sure. Yeah. So
This year we
I
only
think
had
this-
one bill.
So we had
Built in 3.
we had 3, but only 1 was filled.
So we still can't track.
So it's, that's not necessarily the enticement.
No, but with the sub program, if we are able to add with this little amount, right, some bonuses, that seems to be working in other places. So once you do 5 days, you get a bonus. Once you do 10 days, once you do 20 days in a month, and they just keep doing little incentives like that.
Yeah, I mean, I guess my goal, I just don't want money to be an issue to get subs, because I think that's one of the biggest asks of the PCEA, right, is to have people to help during prep time, so teachers aren't losing their prep time.
Yep.
That money, I think, will pay tenfold in terms of the teacher experience, right? So I just want to make sure that we have enough budgeted there.
Well, sorry, I don't mean to interject, but especially because you're paying teachers at a much higher hourly rate than you are substitutes.
Yeah, I just think it's been such a multi-year problem. It's kind of like we're looking at some of these critical roles, and we're increasing RHTA to help get the effective hourly rate for our classified staff to a reasonable level. I think we should do this, look at a similar thing for the subs.
Are you talking about incentives, like what are good incentives, or have you heard some incentives that would work for subs?
Well, it was kind of like you were saying, take a long-term sub position, and
There's a better incentive, but you think, you feel like that's effective.
And the incentive idea has been run in the Valley.
Yeah.
2 different school districts. And they did a pilot back November a year ago, just to see if the idea would even work. And it was successful enough that they implemented it permanently in, after the school break, after the semester break.
So you think that $80,000 would be enough to implement that here?
So something in that range, yeah, something similar to what was done down in the valley. We can do our own experiment, see if that changes the needle on anything.
So we have, in the budget, we have three permanent subs, but we haven't been able to fill them.
Correct, and they're funded with one-time dollars. So again, that was also an experiment to some degree to see if that would change people's mindsets on being available.
Can we increase that to one a school and see if we can hire people?
I would probably still run with the three that we have, since we couldn't hire three in the first place.
But why can't we hire them? Is the wage not high enough, or what's the?
It's an actual teacher salary, so it's actually hiring a first year teacher,
Yeah.
basically. And we did ask as a qualifier that the person has a license because they're here full time, basically, they could be anywhere. What a regular sub doesn't necessarily need to be licensed, right? So if you're somebody who wants to be a sub, you have bachelor's in art or in business, but you come in and sub, that's always been a different rate than a licensed person.
So not requiring a license might attract more people, but then that reduces
Right, but
possibly
it'd
the
be very,
professionals. Yeah.
it would be very
Gotcha.
challenging
Yeah.
to say you can be any degree you want, but we're gonna pay you a first year teacher.
So if we didn't call them subs and they were more like floaters, right? So we have to be licensed and you're full-time, are there benefits or anything like that?
Yeah.
There are.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, but I wonder like why, like if we get
They
people who
still
are,
work for a year.
who
Yeah,
have a professional exemption.
Right.
I mean, shouldn't we be creative and look at making an exception for substitutes if we can find good people?
We're
Like
probably
peop-
gonna get into that time where, as Chad's here at every meeting, right, and he'll tell you, I mean, we're gonna have to start thinking really out of the box, I think. Then we're gonna have to be open to Apple certification, kind of the alternative routes, we're gonna have to be open to growing our own and finding different pathways. You know, we had talked with one of our employee groups outreach, there are some people really interested in being a social worker, how can we help them, get on that path.
Wouldn't
How
this
can
be
we
a
help?
great way to pilot something like that? Is to say, to start with one at each school and see how it goes? I mean, is that
So take the
crazy? Is
license
that
out,
dangerous or is that a good idea? I mean,
Did not
Yeah,
have a
like
license?
well, yeah, if you have someone with like a law degree, if you have someone with a business degree or a art degree, or whatever it is,
Right.
and they qualify under Utah statute.
So I'll tell you, there is a private school in town that is not a day school. So I'm not speaking of the day school, but a different private school in town actually was willing to hire my daughter, who is going into her junior year of college. That to me is really concerning because she has no pedagogy, she has no background, she has no, you know what I mean? And they were willing to hire her like at a teacher rate with 2 years of college. I mean, that tells you what.
But that's why I wonder, like, if that's a potential route that we're gonna be headed towards, right? If we get people who have degrees and masters and things like that, who have a passion for education, and they're in a permanent sub role, that may be a great training spot for them as a first year teacher too. We're not making them, they're doing so in a mentor relationship, right? Like it's almost a paid apprenticeship, right?
You do it like that, where you add a training, like there's an exemption and paralleling, you doing this,
Yeah.
you're going through a training kind of apprenticeship program.
Or can maybe go through in the Apple program and
Right.
getting that license.
Or the Apple,
Yeah.
while you're doing it
Yes. not-
as you're studying,
Yeah, exactly. There needs to be some commitment towards getting licensure, not just.
not just anybody
Being a
else.
library.
Apple.
We're not
I
like.
think it's just in our conversations about, prep time for teacher, right? Do you need to have a fully licensed sub? And the teacher's in the building, but needs prep time. I mean, that's a couple, if it's a floater, a school floater, if you're not sitting in front of third graders for 6 hours with a curriculum, you're like, I'm here for an hour so that teacher can prep, or I'm now in the cafeteria, or I'm now getting the kids on the bus. If you're really more of a floater to help
Maybe
support
those things.
teachers
So we
with
tried.
their prep time.
That is exactly what we tried during the pandemic.
Okay.
Those permanent sub roles. So we did have 3 the first year, which was really helpful. The second year, we've only had 1. And I mean, we're just talking just applicant pool, right? This is applicant pool.
Yeah.
But I do wonder, I wonder if there might be a relaxation to get some retirees back.
Yeah, right,
you
right.
know,
But to me, that would be
Mary
such
has
a, it
something.
would be such a cool way to do it, right? Where they have the mentorship of the licensed teachers and the cohort of
Yeah.
teachers, right?
If you're willing, if you're getting people that are willing to take a substitute job, I think that part of the other issue is that as a, if I'm coming right out of college and I already have this degree and everything, why wouldn't I just go and get a full-time job as a teacher? Instead of coming in as a substitute? And I think that that's where, if we somehow could think out of the box with retired teachers, and waive that qualification or requirement, that they wait a full year to work for the district again.
Well, that's
we might-
URS stuff. That's not ours.
That's,
That's,
that's not.
That's
Right, so
URS.
that, that's a problem. And so I don't.
that's why I'm thinking, like, if you, let's say you have someone who has an MBA or like a business degree or a whatever,
Yeah,
right? And
they're
they move here and they're, and they want to teach in the schools, but they don't have a teaching license. It's like a step to, assuming they're gonna work towards licensure or a licensure waiver, that could be a nice solution, right? Where they're learning from the entire cohort of teachers on the job, right? It's not like they're being set alone to teach fourth grade, or to teach on AP history. They're learning from the best teachers as they're doing it by learning about how they prep for classes and lesson plans. And, I mean, it's kind of if you can find those people, I don't know.
If you can find those
Yeah.
people that kind of,
Yeah.
that.
But shouldn't we get more flexible to even try,
Yeah,
right? Like that, I mean,
right.
And we have 3 posted right now, 3 permanent sub positions posted right now. Additional or less.
The year we're.
How many are posted right now? 2?
0.
0. Oh, they're all filled for next year right now.
No,
Oh,
No, they're not in this year's budget. They were
last year.
God, it didn't work. Didn't fill. Yeah, so we're trying a different.
So we're trying this with the bonuses with the 80.
Okay.
And are we still
Yeah.
going through that service, the
Okay.
sub-service? How's that working? Was that a better than rather us doing it or 6s?
I think it's probably 6s.
Okay.
Because of the labor market, I think it's pretty challenging to determine whether we would have had any more success. If they were frustrated, yes, but I don't know if it's necessarily at the agency or if it is the market itself.
That field is changing too, though. So interestingly, at the superintendent meeting this week, I got to hear about what was the name of the app, Chad? I want to say it's called Sensa app, but it's a strange name, Sensa app, something like that. But it's almost, so they do all of the hiring of the subs. They do all of the trainings. And there's no long-term contracts. It's just if we had people download the app and they get approved through the census service, it's almost like an Uber for substitutes. So the substitute basically says, I'm free today, and they look and they see what positions are open and they click the one they want, and then they show up and then they get paid for that. So it gives them like ultimate freedom to be able to go into many districts. So it's like an Uber, right? Like an Uber for subs. So if that sort of thing happens, there's that opportunity, and they have some cool bonuses built in with ratings. So if they get rated a 4 or 5, they can keep moving up tiers and getting more and more beyond what the school pays. The actual sense the company has grants and things. That's true because they knew this was such a need. So there are some creative opportunities out there. When Shad researched it in February, they weren't quite ready, but now that they were at the superintendent conference, they've been in a couple of bigger districts and had some luck and some good success. So all kinds of like creative ways of trying to do things, but
Are we using that? Is that already part of the service that we use?
it's not part of our service, but you don't have to have it be. It's a whole separate,
It's just a separate.
whole separate thing.
Well,
they only
a
bill you.
little bump in the road
Yeah.
when that whole thing went down, because there was a lot of controversy. There was, I think, a lot of misunderstanding within the community, and there was some really hurt feelings by some of the permanent subs or people that had been subbing in the district for a long time. and didn't understand why now they had to go with the new company and they had to re-interview and all this kind of stuff without really understanding all the intricacies that went along with that decision and why that happened. So I think you're coming out of this, feeling of, okay, we've moved through that and hopefully, going in a positive direction so that we can attract people to come in.
Yeah, the actual subs feedback from the service, they really like it because they get a lot more personal attention. The person calling them and checking on them, and they kind of like that. But I wonder about this Sensa type app too. I mean, I
The
think we should-
onboarding process with edu staff was very daunting. It was for
Cumbersome.
full-time, it was very cumbersome.
Really?
Yes. And so I can see, so I went through both of those, and it was going on to the edu staff was like, you want me to spend 20 hours watching videos? It was very cumbersome.
My oldest daughter said the same when she tried to.
Yeah. Well, even Sensa has that too. They have to go through a certain number of
And yes.
modules before they're ready.
And there is validity to that, I understand, but switching from one service to another, like you said, when we've been subbing for everyone else, and we have to redo it.
So then you think we lost some,
Yes.
they would otherwise be
Yes.
subbing and maybe we're coming out and they'll be available or.
Well, that will be
happens.
happening.
Yeah, yeah.
Chatter dies down. a little
Yeah,
bit.
yeah.
But I don't think we go in a different direction. Yeah, and I mean, obviously, because when I started this whole crazy thing, I was a sub, but I came here and I, did the interview, it's very different, but I think removing all boundaries, right? Like make it an easy process to be a sub, because do I really want to be one? Maybe, I don't know, I've never done it. Make it easy. If I had to do 20 hours of video, I'll tell you, I would have never.
Yeah.
One of the things you'll hopefully approve in tonight's budget is removing all the fees so that volunteers can be fingerprinted without a fee. Substitutes can be fingerprinted without a fee. Teachers can be fingerprinted without a fee. So that's like a plus. That's-
I think over Professor Grady's point of a study and what you were saying, Andrew, we're unique in Park City because we have 2 ski areas now that have raised the entry-level wage to $20. And I don't think you'd see that in the valley. And so I don't know how that's going to impact substitutes when they can do minimal wage work anywhere for $20 an hour.
You get a ski pass?
Yeah.
And
Yeah,
get a
you
ski
can
pass.
work at Vail for 2 days a week, for $20 an hour.
So my
You get a
fear
free
is
ski course
that
for your whole family.
going to be a great impact for us next year.
We have definitely talked about that too, as we look at the whole, when you look at the totality of compensation, people certainly value salaries, certainly value benefits, health benefits, but then there are the other things, right? So what are the things that could potentially be negotiated as perks?
A gym membership.
Right, like different kinds of
Ski
things.
passes.
Yes, credit at Park City Child Care Center for those that need that service, some different, maybe optional, options or choices that you might have here. The other thing that, we do have our licensed professional agreement, and there are things built in that people don't even realize are built in until they go through kind of onboarding on the different enforcement payments and being paid for being a PLC member, all these kinds of things that we probably need to highlight a little bit more, but I think that's kind of the future too, is looking at maybe some different perks, buying a certain amount of, partnering with the foundation or whoever to buy a certain amount of ski passes, that you can qualify for, or shows at PCI or whatever it is that might, get people excited about.
Nobody's showing up on a Saturday.
Saturdays are off days. They're blocked.
To circle back to your earlier.
Can I just, did you have a question? I'm so sorry.
My name's Ben Crosby, and I agree with Andrew. Are you taking that on the capital levers, moving those forward through FY25 based on hopefully there's a surplus and things don't turn out the way they are? The second question is if there is a surplus, is there already funds or expenditure line items in the budget that those would go to, or are they negotiable for other enhancements, new projects, whatever within the district? And the reason why I say that is because there's a lot of things that are on your plate that if you do have that overrun and there is some slush that comes out of those levers, I say keep them flat. Then you can use those for other things that you couldn't probably say that you could spend for now. And I didn't know if you just take it for 22, 23, or if you take it all the way out, because you took the spend out to 25. But is there any rules within the school, within the school district that says you can't tap those funds if there is an overrun or a surplus?
Yeah, so there's no restraints on surplus.
So from a public's perspective, I totally agree with you. I say keep it flat. You know, if it's not 10% inflation, if it's 9%, that's some pretty substantial funds that the school district can play with, as long as that those funds are not already allocated for and there's suggestions for new spending.
Yeah, they would have, in the particular case we're speaking to was the capital budget. So
Sure,
it
capital, that's exactly.
can't find its way into operations, so it has to stay in that arena. And I've run the numbers, so if we were to keep it flat, it would generate just under $2 million, so $1.95 million. And in our tax scenario that we had, it would swing the tax impact up to $154, or about $42 more. For example, we did.
Can you take that out to 2025 as well? Just.
Yeah, it would be annual. It'd be like an annual appropriate, like we have to, we'd meet annually.
Taxpayer here, you know, these property taxes.
So the out years on the revenue, will grow it at a typical 3%, because that's about what our growth revenue is. So not necessarily, we held it flat and then held it flat. The math is a little bit different in the forecasting side of it, but the concept would be hold it flat.
Keep it flat and then recoup or pay down, say, after 25.
So yeah, so anyway,
Thank you. I agree with them. And I think if you have an opportunity to get a surplus, considering everything else that needs to be spent on, it's just another revenue source. Yeah. You can pay it down all the time, just like everybody else does.
Thank you, and thank you for being patient and hanging in there until we jump out to you, yeah, I appreciate that. Perfect, so, I think we can go on to, let's see where I'm at. Can I move to adopt the final budget for the fiscal year 2022 as presented?
I make a motion to adopt the final budget as stated, as outlined.
A second.
Any discussion?
Yeah.
Yes.
So I think we have to have two discussion points. One is, I would propose an amendment to the motion to keep the, I think do we have to do that?
That's not until the
You're gonna
tax.
have three motions.
Yeah.
So your first motion that you're in right now
Is the budget side?
is to finish the year we're in right now. A second motion will be to adopt the preliminary budget for FY 20.
Okay, this is just closing this year.
And then I
Okay.
would-
Yeah.
then
Sorry, I
we
misunderstood.
would Make the amendment.
Okay.
And then we have breaks, we'll have some more amendments.
Okay.
On the rates.
All right, understood.
Perfect, so that one, so all in favor?
Aye.
Perfect, now the preliminary budget. Can I get a motion, the board has reviewed the FY preliminary budget to move forward with the budget proposed?
I make a motion to move forward with the preliminary budget proposed as stated.
A second.
Now, this is where you make your amendment.
Yeah.
So,
So you probably want to.
Yeah, so I guess so the first amendment, well, so is this the tax rate amendment or substitute amendment?
So you have a budget, the budget's built on the tax rates that were assumed
Yeah.
in the presentation. So you want to have an amendment that will recognize the revenue increase.
Okay.
Affected by holding the capital local levy.
Okay, so I make a motion to propose an amendment to keep the capital levy flat versus reducing it.
I second the motion.
Now we discussed that, right?
To the amendment.
Yeah.
Or the amendment.
okay,
Second the
We
amendment.
have
second the
discussion
amendment,
on
any
the
discussion on holding the tax levy flat for this coming year? For the capital levy? All right.
And so what the impact will be is we'll revise the revenue numbers in the budgets that you're looking at, and that money will flow down into the reserves as we move into the future should we not spend it.
Perfect, okay. So all in favor of approving the amendment as stated?
I,
It's unanimous.
Now you have your underlying motion.
So now can I, again, can I get a motion to?
We have a motion on the table. so
Oh,
now you just have
motion.
to vote.
No, so now we vote to approve.
If
the
there's no
budget.
more discussion.
Is there any more?
It's the 23 budget.
It's late. 22 budget as amended. Can I get a motion to approve?
I make a motion to approve it.
Right.
Second.
Any discussion?
No discussion.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Now the final is I need to do, am I correct? The
Yeah,
certified.
so now we're doing the rate.
So can I get a motion to move the, to adopt the certified tax rate for 2023 as presented?
I make a motion to adopt the certified tax rate. 2023 is stated.
Second.
Any discussion?
So we need another amendment.
So this is what, this is also the capital levy?
Yeah, so I'm gonna coach you through what a potential amendment would be. So here are the rates for 22-23. So you would amend the basic levy to be 001652. You would.
Based on today's,
Based on what
What happened
just
in the
happened.
legislature.
Okay, so this is.
Yeah.
okay.
And then the debt service is the 00179.
Yeah.
So your capital levy, to go down to the bottom of the list, and that would be amended to 00270.
Okay.
So those are the three, because in the budget book, I have the wrong rate for debt service. It's
That's capital local, so that's capital local, okay.
Yeah.
So I'll make a motion to amend the basic levy from spot 001661 to spot
1652.
1652.
The debt service, you'll change it from 00177 to 179.
The debt service from 00177 to 00179, and the capital local to stay at spot 000270.
Two.
00270. So those are the amendments.
Okay.
I second.
Any discussion?
No.
Okay. So then, can I get a motion to approve the tax rates with the amended?
We can vote on the amendment.
First, okay, can we vote on the amendment
As
as stated?
I make.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay,
Now we can vote on the motion.
now can I get a motion to approve the certified tax rate with the stated amendment?
I make a motion to adopt the capital tax with the amendments, certified tax rate, with the amendments. Second.
Okay, any discussion?
No. Madam Moss.
All in favor?
Aye.
One more. I move to authorize the business administrator to make necessary changes to revenue budgets once certified tax rates are released. What do you think we have?
I make a motion to authorize the business administrator stated.
Second.
Any discussion?
No.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Perfect. Whew. So that adopts the budget for the 2023 year.
Yeah, so now today's work on the rates will be published when the tax notices go out in July. You'll have a truth and taxation hearing.
On the 16th.
Yeah, to
Okay.
reconfirm the actions of tonight.
Perfect. Okay, well, I make a motion to adjourn until our regular session meeting on Tuesday, August 16th at 4 p.m.
I make the motion to close until August 16th at 4 p.m.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Boy, Aaron, that was a mouthful.
Too many.
I-